Welcome back to the Overplayed podcast, the home of sports and sports gaming in your ear every Thursday, roughly 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on your favorite podcast app. I'm out here to tell you that if you haven't left a 5-star rating yet, your little sausage finger Mervin, okay? Your fingers look like Vienna sausages. You want them to be long and athletic? The 5-star rating. Will we read it? I'm leaving that up to Mills. Mills can read them in the future, possibly, and you're like, good game, bro. Who's Mills? Well, he's the gentleman joining me at GCX on June 19th.
January 19th. Wow.
June 19th. I'm
really
traveling back in
all the
time.
time.
This is how you know I'm on low sleep. June 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And he will also lose his beard soon, in case you haven't heard that or haven't mentioned it soon or anytime recently. Mills, how are you?
I'm sweating profusely.
You should be.
Next Friday is not going to be a fun day. But I will say January, you got me saying it now. June 19th. I am actually really excited for that. For those who don't know, GCX is going on that weekend. They're doing an entire virtual event. Some really cool technology involved in it. If you haven't checked out GCX event on Twitter, also Professor Broman's been showing some of it off. Tim Darkness 429 over on Facebook has been showing some of the tech off. Really, really cool way. Doing way more than E3 has any chance of doing, because E3 is dying slowly. By the way, did you know they are still pushing? I got an email in my box too. They're pushing for journalists to register as soon as they possibly can. They still have not addressed the security, the leak they had last year. Or the last year or the year before, whatever it was. The last time when the leak happened, that leaked everybody's like home addresses, their names, their social security numbers, all that stuff. They still have not addressed that, but they're pushing for people to register for you ready for this? Virtual event that we don't have any details on whatsoever. Give me a break, ESA. Listen, I think ESA has a place in this world. I think they do some good things. This is wildly inappropriate for them to push this without, saying, hey, look, this is what we're doing security wise to be better. They don't have that leverage anymore. And I don't understand why they don't know that.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's a really, really bad thing, right? It's like a mechanic losing, something on your car and you're waiting for your car to be fixed. You know, you've got a scooter, you're riding your scooter for now, you're fine. And then the mechanic hits you up and says, oh, by the way, we've got this new product we can actually get installed in your vehicle. And you're like, but you didn't really fix the thing that you messed up that you owe me for. Like, anyways, like, what are you doing? No shot. Exactly. No shot. I give him my info at this point. Yeah, exactly. And again, I think we've had this conversation before. I think E3 is a dying thing. So many different companies are having their own events. Microsoft has their own event. EA has their own event. Ubisoft has their, Sony has their, like, everyone has their own events. I just don't think E3's got even a place anymore outside of like another indie spotlight, which is great. Don't get me wrong. Indies deserve to have a spotlight too, but like, it's a dying breed. Yeah. I mean, I think as it currently is, I think E3 probably can't really exist. And I think, you and I have both been there multiple times, and the thought of walking down those halls and smelling people not using deodorant for, 3 or 4 days and being that close to one another after going through the pandemic, probably not like the greatest thing in the world, but I still think they could make something out of E3 and still make it monumental and important, because it is really like a milestone of the year, right? As a gamer, you grew up and you're like, man, I can't wait till E3. E3 is the thing. I hope we don't lose that element. I hope they can figure out, pivot, first of all, get this data security thing patched up and solved and sorted out, and then get back to making E3 the special time of year that we all grew up loving.
Well, I think what ends up happening at some point is a lot of these companies start doing their own like presentations and making a con around it. Yeah. While E3 was kind of like almost like TwitchCon or any other con you can talk, Gamescom, any of those cons. I think E3 was kind of just that hub of, hey, look, we're going to throw this. Everyone else can do things around it. I think there's enough companies now that they can all get together and do one con where they're all doing, their presentations around it in different buildings. Obviously, LA is a great place for that because of so many different presentation places. I think would be a really cool place for it. So we'll see. Kind of like we'll see how I've been going back a little bit this week. With what I've been playing, I threw UFC 4 back in for the first time in a while. I haven't visited it in a couple months. They just had a ratings update recently, added a couple of new fighters. I will say, man, like UFC 4 still holds the test of time. It still stands up it's a really, really good and customizable experience. Especially like their career mode. I still love the whole social media aspect of their career mode, adding into like the rivalries and stuff, or like an injury in practice can turn
Yep.
into a rivalry. Like I love that kind of innovation when you're talking about like a career mode for anything. I think a lot of games could probably learn from it. So if you haven't in a while, UFC 4, throw it back in. It feels familiar, but it feels like they've tuned a lot of it to be really, really clean.
Yeah, I think, speaking of things that are, somewhat familiar and probably very, very clean, it'll be your face next Friday or Saturday, whenever it is that you shave your beard. And the only time you'll see your beard is virtually, or when you look at old photos like Wolverine on that meme, sitting on his bed, just staring at old photos. But
if that meme shows anywhere up near my feed, I'm going to be completely mad.
Possibly already on my computer. I will say though that UFC 4 is a fantastic game. I played a lot of it. I love what you're talking about with the franchise or career mode.
Yeah.
Where you're sort of like going through if you're training too hard, or maybe you're overworking yourself because you're trying to prepare for a really difficult opponent, you might get that injury that could then make things crazy difficult. But some of those crazy difficult fights where you've overtrained and had an injury and you pull off a win in maybe a different style, right? Maybe you have an injury to like your right arm, and your punch power goes down, your punch speed goes down, and now you've got to be a little bit more defensive and maybe more submissive in terms of how you actually go through your fight. Those are some of the best elements about that. And again, we've talked about storytelling organic through sports games so much on this podcast. That is one of those elements that, again, to your point, I hope more games see that and build some sort of mechanic or gameplay element around it for sure.
I mean, it's pretty normal. I would think that you would mention how submissive something is, considering that's your role in the podcast.
As soon as I said submissive and not a more submission play style, I was like, I hate it here.
Moving on this week in sports, let's talk about another fight system. So, Esports Boxing Club or Boxing Club, Esports Boxing Club announces a new haymaker system, 230 licenses for not only boxers but trainers, cutmen, promoters, and networks. Dude, this game feels more AAA by the day, and it's by an indie studio. So talk to me about this haymaker system, what they've talked about, and some of the other notes that they came out with this week.
Yeah, for sure. So I went through a little bit on the haymaker system. I didn't see like a ton of information. I don't feel like they've really dove deep into some of the systems yet, but I think one of the quotes that stood out to me is they stated the roster has always been secondary for them in comparison to gameplay. Gameplay is always the number one thing they're going after. And I love that approach because I think it's easy for companies to sit there when they're in an indie title coming out and just saying like, we're going to focus on roster, get the name attention, and not maybe put as much effort into gameplay. Like obviously still make it strong, but them going gameplay first, I think is what, everybody wants to hear. Execution, we'll see ultimately. But the haymaker system, they kind of detailed briefly, and they said it's sort of one of those systems where there's a lot of like, if you go for a haymaker and you land it, there's a good chance you're going to get a good bit of reward if you catch them at the right angle. If you go for a haymaker and miss it, if you're trying to spam it or throw it, in situations where maybe it doesn't necessarily make sense to throw a haymaker, you're setting yourself up for sleeping on the canvas. So again, I love that they're bringing in risk reward. If you know anything about boxing, the sweet science, risk reward is a huge part of that, and timing and throwing it at the right time is huge. So I love that they're thinking about that already.
It's crazy, man. Like we haven't had a boxing game forever. And I think what you said there, the gameplay is more important than the roster, considering how impressive their roster is right now. It's pretty insane just to have that comment sitting there, because I think I said this last week. The roster is going to bring in the eyes. Okay. The gameplay isn't what it's going to bring the eyes. The gameplay after it releases could be word of mouth. But the eyes are going to come in because they see Canelo Alvarez, because they see, all these other big time boxers, Sugar Ray Leonard, I think they have Muhammad Ali, and they say that was one of the guys in the roster too. Whatever, all of these like boxers that are known names are going to be the thing that bring in the eyes. Once the gameplay happens, the gameplay could be that next boost of once it releases, that word of mouth of, hey, this is a really, really great fighting game. So I'm truly excited for that. Again, and every word that we hear about this feels like it should be like an EA title or like a 2K title or like a Sony title or something. And it's not. It's like this indie studio.
Yeah, this is blowing my mind. I didn't realize they had Muhammad Ali, so kudos to you for knowing that. Not only that, didn't know this. I don't know if you knew this. They have female fighters as well in the game.
Yes.
I was not aware of that.
They announced the roster of female finals, correct?
So Clarissa Shields, honestly, someone that is one of the best female boxers on the planet, has a chance to be one of the greatest female boxers of all time. They have Katie Taylor, Siniesa Estrada, like Jessica McCaskill. They have a good, solid roster of like female fighters out here, and I'm kind of blown away. Like, this is way deeper than I thought. They said, I think today or recently, 230 licenses for boxers, trainers, cutmen, and promoters and networks. That is
so to get different promotion packages. Yeah, I'm excited, man. There's no release date for it yet. Obviously, I still think we're pretty. I won't say early. I think we're middle of the process right now. I don't think they're close to releasing yet. But the more information they're putting out there, man, it's been mind blowing what they've been able to do in terms of what expectations were put on them, and just kind of like just blowing these expectations away constantly. So very, very cool.
Absolutely. Kudos to them. Look, again, the boxing community has been starving for a boxing title. Mm-hmm. The boxing community is one of the more communities that will heavily scrutinize any game that comes into that space. So I wish them the best of luck, and I hope that they have plans for consistent updates, gameplay tweaks, patches, maybe some DLC for people to look at down the road. They have a lot of potential, though, for sure.
Get Logan and Jake Paul in the game.
Mills, I was looking at your stupid face, and I knew you were going to say something.
I'm just saying, like, listen, Jake Paul might be the most, watched boxer in the game right now. Just what it is. Anyway.
Mills.
Let's move over to some real sports. I hate you. Today, Coach Shushu announced that he is stepping down. I refuse to say that man's name. There's a rivalry with Maryland. I just can't say. Coach Krzyzewski has announced that after the 2022 season, he'll be stepping down from Duke. He wants one last swing at the title. I mean, maybe the best college coach ever. Is that where he stands right now, or who would you put above him? It's hard, isn't it? It's tough.
You start talking. Yeah, for me, I'd probably look at like a Mount Rushmore, right?
Right.
And I think if there's two people in my lifetime, well, actually, there's three people I think in my lifetime of coaches that I can remember and watch since I was younger that I would say are up there. Coach K, yes. I think absolutely deserves to be there. Pat Summitt. Her run, her dominance, her importance to the women's game at Tennessee 100% deserves to be there. Mm-hmm. And the third coach that I would say without a doubt in my lifetime is Gino Auriemma at UConn. What he's done for women's basketball at UConn, what he's done with that program for so long, like those three are there. But I mean, Coach K has the most wins of anyone. Gino will ultimately pass that very soon. Like, it's only a matter of time. The dude's winning unreal numbers of games every year. He's going to coach for, I think he just signed an extension. Coach K, what he's done at Duke is phenomenal, man. Like, I'm going to miss him, but I did see, I think they have the coach in waiting they named was John Shire, former player at Duke not too long ago.
Yeah.
So that to me is cool. They're going with a younger guy who knows the program, who has a good relationship with a lot of the players. I'm excited to see what they do. I am going to say, though, I don't know if I wish, but I wanted Jeff Capel to have, a chance being at Duke for so long. And now he went to, I think he's at Pitt, if I remember correctly. I was hoping they were going to at least we'd hear his name rumble a little bit, but I know they wanted to give a younger guy a chance. So it's cool. I'm okay with Shire.
Well, they're going to want another guy that can stay at the school, have the opportunity to stay at the school forever. Yeah, like Krzyzewski was. We're talking about best coaches of all time. I'm going to add Bobby Knight in there, obviously, for everything that he has negative around him with his treatment of players, with the way he acts on the court. Still, his results aren't questioned. John Wooden, you name the trophy after him for sure. Also, I'm going to put another name in there that doesn't really get said a whole lot. Jim Boeheim from Syracuse, I think gets overlooked a lot.
Zone is for cowards. Zone.
It's what it is. What are you talking about? It's effective. And let's talk about this. When you talk about the 2-3 zone, it's Jim Boeheim. Like, it's almost synonymous at this point when you talk about a 2-3 zone, especially a 2-3 matchup zone that they run. Like, they're not running just regular 2-3. They're running a very intricate 2-3 matchup zone in Syracuse.
I know, but zone is for cowards, man.
Oh, come on.
When you go play ball and someone goes in a zone, you immediately are like, they're cowards. They can't guard anybody man to man. The matchup zone is more difficult than a regular zone. I fully get that. There are complex rules within it. I get it. But zone is for cowards. And also Boeheim is an idiot. Some of the things that he said over the past year or two,
Yeah, he is.
just made me dislike him even more than I did before because of the zone. So
I'm giving on the court coaching stuff. Obviously, I bring Bobby Knight up, so it has to be on the court. Yeah, 100%. So the other question I have is, he wants one last shot at a title. Do they have a shot? They were not very good this year, but I will say a lot of that was COVID. They lost a lot of games and a lot of player games due to COVID this year. They're still in a very tough conference, and there are a lot of really good teams in college basketball this year that the players didn't leave because of COVID. Does Duke have a realistic shot of getting this title in 2022?
Look, I'm always going to, as a Duke fan, I'm always going to hope that Duke has a chance.
I love Duke.
I'm not going to say they are a front runner by any stretch, right? Yeah. I still think Gonzaga is going to be really tough. Chet Holmgren, if I remember correctly, is going to be a freshman this year. That's a 7-footer that averaged a triple-double for a while with blocks. Mind you, his man was points, rebounds, and blocks. He had a triple-double for the majority of his senior year in high school. So I think Duke is going to be a top 15 team. Guaranteeing top 10 is going to be real tough for them, I think. It's just a guard play so big. I'm not sold on some of the guard play at Duke. They've struggled in recent years, especially with that. I don't know. College basketball, I feel like now more than ever is a toss up of maybe there's especially no real guarantees. Yeah,
especially the tournament. You get a 5 seed in the tournament, all of a sudden, they're taking this weird path that gets to the Final Four. And Duke to me feels like this year probably. Again, it's way too early to be talking about predictions, obviously, but Duke feels somewhere in the 5 to 8 seed kind of idea when you're talking about where they could be, unless they win the conference, which I can't see them winning the conference this year. So, speaking of winning, just win or leave. Danny Ainge today steps down for the Celtics. They're going to move Brad Stevens into the front office to take over the role. Obviously, there's a lot more to this than Danny Ainge not winning in Boston, okay? There's been a lot going on with Kyrie there with the Nets after they just beat their brakes off with the stepping on the logo, all the racism that goes around that entire organization. There's been some racist claims thrown at Danny Ainge as well as throughout basketball. Danny Ainge stepping down does represent a very large step, though, because Danny Ainge, you got to remember, this is the guy that brought together Garnett, Pierce, and Ray Allen back in the day. Like, their last title was built by Danny Ainge. Since then, times haven't been as good. Talk to me about Brad Stevens moving into this spot and Danny Ainge. Oh, man, it feels like there's a lot of sweeping under the rug with Danny Ainge stepping down with this.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Ainge was a player Celtic, right? He was a homegrown talent from that perspective, where they bring him sort of underneath. He was a coach for a while and sort of obviously failed being a coach, wasn't very good at that, and then sort of moved into the front office. A lot of criticism on him early. His one shining moment, you'll maybe argue this like you have before, but his one shining moment was getting, again, the big three together, getting that title, or 2 titles maybe with him. I can't remember exactly, but I mean, the trade for Garnett was an absolute garbage trade, by the way. If I remember correctly, it was Al Jefferson. I think Theo Ratliff, when he was, in the twilight years of his NBA, the twilight years of his NBA career, and probably a couple first round picks or something. The Garnett trade was the easiest trade you could have possibly made. Everybody knew he wanted out. He was publicly saying, I'm not happy here. The ownership in Minnesota is terrible.
How things haven't changed.
Yeah, I don't think Danny Ainge was a great GM. Celtics fans might hate me for that, but I just don't think he was a great GM. And
I think a lot of Celtics fans would agree with you.
Yeah. The thing with going with Brad Stevens, right? What was wild, that tweet went viral again today as of recording on Wednesday. So yesterday for you listening day of podcast, the tweet went viral of, I think it was something Mannix. I forgot the guy's name, but he basically had tweeted out would you rather have Brad Stevens or a player if you were doing an expansion draft? It's one of the dumbest things because there's no coach I think I would ever take over a player if I have an opportunity in an expansion draft. Yeah. And Brad Stevens was thought to be the shining star in the NBA, the head coach, the next wave of head coaches. We're looking at some of the NFL young coaches. They were Brad Stevens is the next guy. Teams are starting to try to poach some other other NCAA talent at that point. Didn't really work out as well. And Stevens has admitted now recently to being burnt out and just sort of like not feeling the coaching thing.
Good time to move into the front office.
Yeah, I really wonder if this is not Brad Stevens' exit strategy of, hey, I'm going to go into the front office. I'm going to be here for a year or two. I'm going to let the job that I want open back up in college, and I'm going to then make a natural transition. He has to be kicking himself. He didn't take Indiana. Like he has to be 100%. Kicking himself over that right now. Yeah. So I think this is an exit strategy more than anything. And the Celtics doing their thing of like not trying to burn any bridges, and they're trying to take care of their own, so to speak. But I don't know if I like Brad Stevens as a GM. We don't know anything about his GM skills, honestly.
Yeah. I will say that I love Brad Stevens as a coach. I think Brad Stevens is one of the brightest coaches. He was one of the brightest coaches when he came out of college so many years ago and came to Boston. I'm with you, man. Like they're talking about a guy that's been with the organization for 8 years. It's a normal promotion to go to the head of basketball operations. Maybe, but the Boston Celtics have so many problems over the last 8 years. Do you really want to elevate somebody who, again, he had to have some say in these personnel moves? So you're going to elevate him up when they've had so many bad moves the last 8 years, and you want to keep the same piece? I just don't agree with that. I think you got to hire from outside. If you're going to shake things up, Danny Ainge stepping down and Brad Stevens moving up does not shake things up at all. That's just Danny Ainge stepping down. And again, this to me screams getting Danny Ainge out of this target. Now I get it. Danny Ainge had a stroke. Was it a stroke or heart attack? In 2019, heart attack in 2019. And then he's been on record as saying, with all the protocols that COVID has had in the bubble, it's not as fun as a job anymore. I get it. But then you've got Danny Ainge saying it's not as fun a job. You got Brad Stevens saying, I'm not really having that much fun either. And you're going to switch them out? It's a very Boston Celtics move. Let's put it that way. It is a very Boston Celtics move. And I feel bad for Celtics fans. Well, I feel bad for half of Celtics fans because the other half are yelling at Kyrie Irving for stepping on a logo, which, all right, let me just, I'm going to transition to this because this was a big story this week. Kyrie Irving, for those who don't know, Kyrie Irving was a water bottle thrown at him, or something was thrown at him. Yeah. Water bottle thrown at him from the stands. He was upset. They won. He stepped on the quote unquote Lucky logo on the face of Lucky. The fans went nuts. Here's what I'll say. The fans have every right to go nuts over it. They're fans. It's what makes sports fun. Let that be a thing. But with Kyrie and multiple other players, and I'm going to go back to this point because Boston is famous for this, and now Marcus Stroman has come out. There have been a bunch of athletes that have come out and said, Boston is a racist fan base. And I'm sorry if this paints a broad stroke. It shouldn't. There are obviously some bad eggs, souring the group. But Kyrie has had to hear this ever since he left Boston, and apparently sometimes in Boston. If you think stepping on the Lucky logo and not taking to task every fan of that crowd is the important part of this, I'm sorry, you're looking at the wrong thing. Okay, you're looking at the wrong thing. The Nets just beat the brakes off of you. Number two, you haven't had a star player in the 8 years at Brad Stevens, like an actual real star player. You've got Kemba Walker. You're going to have to deal with 2 more years on his deal. Evan Fournier is going to be an expiring contract this season. Like, they have so many roster issues right now. They have so many issues going around the organization. They need something. And this was their chance to shake the entire organization up. Someone to come in, step in, and be like, you know what? We're cleaning this place up. And they did. They said, here, let's keep Brad Stevens. Let's keep the status quo. No problem. We'll just move on. Okay. Enjoy the bottom of the East for the next few years there, brother.
Yep. Or being a middle team and not really improving because you're going to have a rookie GM try to figure out who you're going to be drafting. Godspeed.
And he's going to want to win. That's the thing, is like when they come in, they're going to want to win. And I know Brad Stevens probably feels like that team could win. It's time to blow it up, man. It's time to blow the entire situation up. Start from fresh, to take a couple of years and go like that. But like you said, if this is Brad Stevens' exit strategy, the Celtics may be in trouble for the next 5 years. legitimately, at
You're
least.
wasting the talent of Jason Tatum, by the way, who is looking like a dude that just needs some people around him.
Well, Jason Tatum's looking like Damian Lillard right now.
Hey,
Another
Lillard.
guy. Let's talk about it right now. Damian Lillard is unbelievable for the Trailblazers. He's better than anybody in the NBA right now. I will take Damian Lillard over anybody. You talk about like you're going to start a franchise. I will start a franchise around Dame Lillard right now over anybody in the NBA the way he's playing. The problem is that everybody else around him is a garbage fire, including the coach, CJ McCollum stepping on the. How do you step out of bounds like that? How do you let Dame Lillard carry you as long as you do during that game? And what do you do? You step out of bounds at the last possession. I've stood up for CJ McCollum. I think CJ McCollum's a good guard. They're going to lose to the Nuggets, unfortunately, and we're not going to get a chance to see. We're going to be losing Steph Curry and Dame Lillard, two of the most exciting players in the NBA, are not going to be in this playoffs. That's unfortunate. So, but what do the Blazers have to do here? What do the Blazers have to do to turn this series around, or can they at this point?
I mean, pray to God that Dame Lillard doesn't request a trade. Here's the interesting thing for the Blazers right now. If I remember correctly, I was doing a little bit of research this morning. Damian Lillard signed a 4-year extension a year or two ago, and it now kicks in, I think, this next upcoming season.
Right.
So Lillard is locked in at a lesser value than he probably is worth, ultimately, because you can argue, like, at worst, Dame Lillard is a top 5 player in the NBA. I think Dame Lillard really is that dude that if you have the right pieces around him, that dude is a NBA championship caliber winning player. Like, I fully believe that in Damian Lillard, from attitude to marketing to ability on the court to leadership. Like, that is a dude to absolutely want in your organization.
Right.
So if you're Lillard, you're in a situation where McCollum has got a couple of injuries recently. McCollum isn't playing maybe up to snuff because when he was healthy, the dude was absolutely killing it. Maybe he's stealth, hurt. We don't really know that right now.
Right.
Their backcourt, their big men aren't necessarily great right now.
Including Nurkic, by the way. Including Nurkic. Yeah. Nurkic has gone silent, so
100%. And it's tough because that dude has been through the injury gambit as well right now. Mm-hmm. But if you're Damian Lillard, you have to be at a point where you're saying, I have 4 years left now that are at an undervalued contract. Can he win in Portland? Can Damian Lillard do it? Sure. But can the cast around him do it? Damian Lillard is in a slightly better situation than LeBron was in Cleveland the first time when he ultimately left. His cast is not as bad as what LeBron had there. But he's in a similar situation of deciding, like, do I really want to have to put up 40, 50 in playoff games just to give us a chance to win? Not even win, a chance to win. He dropped 55 points, hit 10 3-pointers, had 10 assists, and they lost.
Yep.
Like, they lost. As a player, you have to be thinking exit strategy. So I don't think they can win against the Nuggets. I think, again, Jokic is having his way. He's putting up stupid numbers. He had like 30, almost a triple-double, I think, last. He was one rebound away, I think, ultimately. But I think Denver's going to win that series. They'll close it out in the next game. And Damian Lillard, again, one of the most talented players in the NBA who's not getting enough respect, has got some decisions he's got to make.
Yep. Carmelo Anthony is their 5th leading scorer on the team right now behind, well, I guess 4th because Trent's not there anymore. Norman Powell's been really good for them. I will say that Norman Powell's been fantastic. I think that was a great trade.
Agreed.
To get him from the Raptors. McCollum has to be better, man. McCollum has to. I don't care. I mean, I understand that McCollum was hurt this year. McCollum's got to be better in this series. You can't have mental mistakes when you're against a team like with pretty much what's going to be the reigning MVP. You can't have mental mistakes against this Nuggets team. This Nuggets team is too well oiled. I think the Trailblazers can beat this team. I really believe that. They've got to do a couple of things better on the defensive side. Again, I think Powell's already playing well. Covington has got to play better defensively. Covington's got to play the defensive game that we know he can play.
He has one job.
Right.
Or 2 jobs, but yeah.
Go play defense and hit 3-pointers. Like that's what you have to do. He's got to do those things. Guys like Nurkic have got to play better. If Nurkic turns things around and CJ McCollum, comes out of the doldrums, this is a different series. I really do. It is a lot to ask, especially with Nurkic right now. Nurkic is lost. Nurkic is, and a lot of that goes to having to go against Jokic.
Sure.
For sure. And that's a tough sign. Don't get me wrong. That's a tough sign, but it's affecting Nurkic on the offensive side too. where it can affect him. Like Dame needs some help up there, and it's more than guard play. He needs somebody in the front court that can wear down Jokic a little bit, and they just don't have that right now with Jokic looking the way he does. Talk about not having a piece. Joel Embiid, the one thing we have talked about for the 76ers all year was if Embiid goes down, they're in trouble. Embiid went down. He's got a meniscus tear. He was out for game 5. He is currently, it's game 6 right now, or it's game 5 right now.
Game 5,
he is out for game 5 tonight as we record this. He is questionable for game 6. They have not talked about status. They've just said questionable. We don't know. I'm not as worried about this series because I still think the Sixers are up by enough. I still think they're going to end up beating the Wizards at some point by hook or crook, whatever. I'm actually legitimately worried for them against Atlanta, which I thought that would be a blowout series with Embiid. If Embiid's not healthy, and the thing with the meniscus tear too, he's going to need time. They're not going to have time. Even if they beat the Wizards, they're not going to have that much time between the series with them and the series with, I'm going to assume, the Hawks. Then he's going to have to deal with Clint Capella, who can handle him. Maybe not all over the court. Don't get me wrong. Capella's not going to shut him down. Then he's going to get bodied by Capella a little bit. Then he's going to have to face off against the Bucks or the Nets, where he's going to be leaned on as the number one guy. This is it for the Sixers, right? Unless he's completely healthy, this is it. He can't be ailing, right? For the Sixers to win.
I mean, I think you're right. They eke out this series. They're up 6 right now at the time of recording in the third quarter. It just hurt, man. As a dude who loves Joel Embiid, I love what Joel Embiid does for the game, the trash talk, the skill set, the moves, just everything about Joel Embiid is so much fun. Like, I hate seeing this dude get injured. They have no chance to long-term advance. Okay, you beat the Hawks, then you're going to end up facing Milwaukee, in my opinion, or Brooklyn. You're not getting past them without a 100% healthy Embiid. Your best case scenario was going 6 or 7 games with a healthy Embiid dominating. Now Embiid's going to be sort of, hobbled up. I don't think they have a chance to win either of those series. It's going to be tough.
I agree. And it really sucks because this is the second major star we've seen have an injury that's going to affect that series. We talked about Luka Doncic with his nerve damage to the Clippers. I will say this again. I thought the Clippers were going to dominate the Mavericks. They didn't, and it was a lot because of Luka. Luka's injured. It's a completely different team. It's a completely different team. The Clippers are working up on. So it almost goes to that. You start thinking about the schedule again, and these guys are getting into the end of a season where they were really tight on the schedule. They lost 2 months of the schedule and only 10 games. You start to really worry about player safety at that point. And what we're talking about, Embiid with a meniscus tear, said Doncic with there's been a cavalcade of little Anthony Davis, whether his injury is just missing in action on game 1 or when he's actually hurt now. And a lot of these things don't feel like, they don't feel like freak injuries.
Yeah.
Like don't get me wrong, nerve damage is a freak injury, but like that can happen. You get so many bumps and bruises over the season. You start to carry yourself a little differently. Chris Paul's the same way with the Suns. Like, he's playing with one arm. He's playing really well with one arm right now.
LeBron
looks slow. LeBron looks slow in that series. And we talked about that he didn't look right in the Warriors game. Even though he had a lot of shots, he looked slow in the Warriors game when they won. After what was rolling his ankle in the Pelicans game at the end of the season, right?
Yeah, it was like a high ankle sprain or low ankle sprain. Yeah.
Yeah, and that really sucks because this is one of those playoffs that you really wanted to see, like the superstars ball out. I want to see Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and Seth Curry and those guys against, Giannis and his crew, or against, the big 3 of Brooklyn. Like, I want to see that. That's an Eastern Conference final I can get behind. I don't want to see Atlanta get literally curb stomped by anybody. Because Atlanta's getting curb stomped if they face off against Brooklyn or Milwaukee. So I really, really hope Embiid's okay. I really hope Luka comes back too. As somebody that wanted to see that Clippers-Lakers final, which I don't think either team might get out now, I really want to see Luka come back and look good.
Yeah, I think last I read earlier today, Luca is progressing well and he feels almost normal. So we'll see how much of that is talk versus, all it takes for stuff like that. Whenever you're dealing with a neck or a back injury, you get jostled one time or you land wrong one time and all of a sudden you feel it all over again. So
shoots right down the spine. Yep.
Yep.
And let's talk about the Lakers real quick, just because we brought them up. I mean, the Lakers down 3-2 right now. Defensively, they looked. I'll say it again. They looked lost. They couldn't stop Booker. They couldn't stop anybody. On defense against the Suns in Game 5. So the Suns go up, and Game 6. The biggest problem again is Anthony Davis is in doubt. This Lakers team looks like they may lose with Anthony Davis. Without Anthony Davis, they're a pushover. Like the Suns roll them and move on. Do the Lakers, first of all, do the Lakers need Anthony Davis in this game? Second of all, does it matter?
They do need him. They can win with a healthy Anthony Davis, but if you've ever had a groin injury, he's not going to be healthy this series. He's probably not going to be healthy for the next series if they even got that far. The Lakers they're going to be fishing. They're going to be going fishing. It's only a matter of time. I hate to see it. I hate to see it happen. LeBron can do it. LeBron's 36. He's been playing in the playoffs 17 of 18 years, whatever the heck it's been. I can't even remember at this point. 16 of 18 years, whatever. Like, LeBron has taken a physical toll on his body. The ankle injury at 36, at 265 pounds, 6'9", is tough to recover from when you're trying to carry a team of dudes that are afraid to shoot. And when they do shoot, forget where the rim is. This is a tough series without outside shooting.
LeBron's surrounding cast has been awful.
It's terrible.
Has been absolutely, and I'm going to say this right now. I don't think it's because of the Suns. I don't think the Suns have done anything that crazy on defense. Like, they're not playing particularly physical. They're not playing particularly close. Like, it's the Lakers missing completely open shots. It's insane. And again, some of that's Anthony Davis, like the pressure that Anthony Davis takes on. Some of that is, LeBron not having to worry, like teams not having to worry about LeBron really exploding right now. But a lot of that is just Dennis Schroeder not shooting well. Or a lot of
Frank
that
Vogel too. Let's talk about Vogel. Vogel has called a terrible game. Sitting Taylor Horton-Tucker on the bench as long as he has some of these moments, I'm like, Horton-Tucker is an absolute bucket. Put this dude in the game instead of letting Ben McLemore miss 15,000 threes or Wes Matthews forget what the basketball hoop even looks like. Put a dude in who can get to the rim. Put a dude in who will create his own shot to help out LeBron. Like, Vogel has coached a very, very poor last couple of games, and Monty Williams, again, the most probably underrated coach in the NBA despite winning Coach of the Year. Monty Williams is coaching phenomenally well. He is putting the ball in Booker's hands, getting into the spots that Booker really wants to be in. Even with Chris Paul not being at full health out here, he's still running really good plays to get all those guys involved and getting his younger dudes who are more role players involved really well. And he's running great defensive rotations with his unit.
Yeah, that was the big thing, is the defensive rotations he's run. Like I said, they're not doing anything crazy. They're just doing everything really, really sound.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to just see that. I mean, to see Booker averaging over 25, guy like DeAndre Ayton has taken that next step, man. Like, I didn't think DeAndre Ayton was going to be ready for these playoffs. DeAndre Ayton, dude, a guy like Campaign has looked amazing.
Was flagged as one of the worst basketball players ever by Chicago Bulls management when they drafted him. So
yeah, I'm sure the Bulls Bulls fans are in pain watching.
Oh yeah, no pun intended. Wow, okay,
I actually didn't mean it, but it came out pretty good, right? Let's move on to the NFL. So we had a couple of NFL things. Julio Jones, we talked about him being, on the phone with Shannon Sharp last week, saying he's out for Atlanta. We've heard more and more rumors since then talking about, maybe for a first round pick. I think that was a lot of smoke and mirrors being thrown around over the weekend. But I think Atlanta has confirmed now that they would take a solid second rounder for him. A lot of places being mentioned. I think I saw the Chargers at some point. I saw Baltimore at some point. I've seen a bunch of different team names. Right now, where is the best fit for Julio Jones? Obviously, looking for a winner. Not every team could use I think Julio Jones is top 10 player. Top 10 receiver. Don't get me wrong, but it would have to be the right fit. It would have to be the right team for that. Where do you think a good fit for Julio Jones would be?
Yeah, I think you need a team for Julio that he he needs to be able to play, right? But he doesn't need to play every single down. He doesn't need to be the guy that's running deep routes the entire time and pulling his hammy and then having lingering issues all season.
Right.
It pains me. Baltimore makes a ton of sense in my opinion. You've got a young receiver core that can learn a ton from him. But you also let him go out there and be a number one, but he can take some plays off, let some of these younger guys, again, run deeper routes or be a misdirection basically, or a decoy. I think the Cardinals can still make a lot of sense. Again, you've got a deeper receiver core there with some good talent now. I think you can make some really cool things happen there with the Cardinals. And again, Kyler Murray, a guy who can stretch the plays around or whatever. I can see Julio still being a fantastic third down target for him, similar to what Hines Ward was doing in the latter years of his career for Pittsburgh, or most of his career, I guess, technically. I think
Arizona, Julio would have DeAndre Hopkins across from him. Like you said, he wouldn't have to be that number one. He could be that secondary receiver, maybe not get double teamed all the time. I mean, at this point in their careers, you'd almost say DeAndre Hopkins might be the better receiver than Julio Jones. He would require more attention, and Julio Jones could possibly take some time off with some plays off with them having a pretty deep receiver core themselves.
Yep. And then my wild card, you're going to vomit when I say this. My wild card is Green Bay.
Yes. Getting Jordan Love a new target.
But no, think about the drama that creates if all of a sudden the Packers are like, okay, Aaron, we've got you Julio Jones. So now you have Julio Jones and Devontae Adams. The drama around that becomes really intriguing because, okay, maybe Aaron Rodgers leaves. Okay, you still have a really young quarterback and you just gave him an aging receiver who's still very good in Julio Jones with Devontae Adams. That could still be a really fun dynamic for Green Bay. But they're not typically known for doing big trades, but I could see that being fun.
I want that to happen so badly. There's no vomit in my mouth at all. I want that to happen because I want to watch Aaron Rodgers implode. And if he gets traded away, he's not going to. I want to watch it happen. I want to watch him visibly get worse as the season goes on. Just see the pain in his eyes. I want to see Aaron Rodgers' dead eyes on the TV on a Sunday night game in Green Bay while Chicago's putting that spanky down on the Packers. I just want to see it. I just want to see Chicago up like 41-7 and Aaron Rodgers going, why am I playing in sub-zero temperatures when they could have traded me to Miami or they could have traded me to somewhere like anywhere but this god-awful city. I just want to see it happen. Just watch that entire place implode in its own little crater. Please let Julio Jones go to the Packers. No, not for Julio Jones' sake. I hope Julio Jones goes to somewhere cool. Like I think Arizona is probably the best fit for him. Although I will say, I wouldn't mind seeing him in Baltimore. I would not mind seeing him in Baltimore and them to let the chain go on Lamar a little bit for the passing game. So,
yeah. Cardinals will be dope though because you also get Julio on turf, and the Cardinals, Arizona, the Phoenix area notoriously has some of the best medical staff in terms of rehabbing players too as well. So I think turf plus that for Julio would make an insane amount of sense.
And remember, an Arizona 5 is a 10 anywhere else. It's the truth. It's the truth. You ever been to Phoenix?
I have.
You should.
I family
exactly,
out there,
exactly what I'm talking about. Then it's just a different. They're built different out there, Doug. They're built different.
I hate everything about this.
Moving on, more NFL just came out today. NFL in regards to their concussion settlements and talking about post career concussion syndrome. There was a lot of, unfortunately, it looks like they were doing what's called race norming. And what that means is they were thinking that African Americans, I'm going to read this give me a second. I want to read this from the story because I want to make sure I get this quote correct.
I read the tweet when this came out, no lies, 6 or 7 times. And I was like, this is the Onion.
Okay. No, this is ESPN. I want to read this. This is the ESPN article. The NFL on Wednesday pledged to halt the use of race norming, which assumed black players started out with lower cognitive functioning in the $1 billion settlement of brain injury claims to review past scores for any potential race bias. So let me be very clear about this. The next paragraph, and it should clear it up a little bit. The practice had made it harder for black players to show a deficit and qualify for an award. The standards were designed in medicine in the 1990s. Not the 70s, the 90s for what we're talking here. in hopes of offering more appropriate treatment to dementia patients, but critics faulted the way they were used to assess legal damages. So they were essentially saying, hey, if you're black, you're dumb. And if that concussions don't affect you the same way. That's
and this again, I read through this article so many times, and I again, to people that wonder why did African American players kneel in the NFL, here's another example of why. This is kind of spurred by two former Pittsburgh Steelers players, so Kevin Henry and Najee Davenport. I'll read you another excerpt from this article, which again helps paint a much clearer picture as to why this is incredibly frustrating, adding on to what Head Mills had put. Henry and Davenport, for instance, were denied awards, but would have qualified had they been white, according to their lawsuit, which Brody dismissed in March, calling it an improper collateral attack on the settlement. They've appealed the ruling. There were 50,000 signatures that went. This is actually a judge in Philly that initially had denied it, but now it is getting the much needed attention that it essentially is. To read again the one line that matters here, they are alleging in the suit, and they have again credence now, they were denied awards but would have qualified had they been white. The unbelievable feeling to be reading something like that in 2021 is mind-boggling. Like, the NFL is notorious for, over the history, not really taking the best care of their NFL players. And there have been a lot of different lawsuits around that. The concussion lawsuits have been numerous and have really been, some of the things that have been addressed probably the most. To then know that if you are a black player in the NFL, which is, you could argue, the vast majority of the NFL or a very large portion of the NFL, that you are then going to be more likely to be denied post-career care or claims for the concussion lawsuits that came out that we have now seen. Go watch the movie Concussion. That you would be denied more often than not just because of your skin color, despite the tenure you put into the NFL, is unbelievable to know. If there's one reason to be happy, it's the fact that this is now coming to light, that the NFL is now trying to jump in front of it. But if there's one thing that I've learned over the course of my lifetime as a fan of football, never trust the NFL, even with what they're coming out with today.
And the worst part about this entire story is that they're just saying, "Oh, don't worry, we'll do better." There's no program. There's no, nothing to hold them to it right now outside of I believe the court judge in Philly asked for a full breakdown of players by race and how they were paid.
They'll never get that data.
They'll absolutely never get. If anybody hoards data more and sweeps it under the rug than the NFL, that's news to me. I'm with you. It's 2021 and we're still talking about black players being used as gladiators and white players being revered as heroes. That's what this is. I'm sorry. That's what this is.
He's so scrappy.
He
brings his lunch pail.
Right? He's such a hard worker. Oh, but don't worry, that white quarterback is fantastically skilled. What a great arm he has. You know what? All the credit on him. I'm done with it, man. I'm done with it. And the problem is that nothing, when things are going to change? When the bottom line changes. When it becomes so bad that people stop watching because they're so appalled by what's going on. And that sucks. That excuse my language, that effing sucks that it's going to come to that. Wake up, folks. Like, it's time to start supporting these causes. Like, us just being, and I'm not talking about retweeting it on Twitter and showing up. I'm talking about actually like supporting and signing some of these documents. This is not race baiting, man. This is not us being like, hey, look, this is no big, there's a reason we talk about these types of things on the podcast. Do you think I like bringing these up in a happy podcast? I mean, I'm only so happy next to Doug, but there's a reason we bring these things up, because these things are real. These things are actually happening. Like, if you see like one of these one of the ways to step up and say something. It's just, it's gotten so bad. And for the NFL to, oh, don't worry, we'll do better, is unconscionable to me.
Yeah, one of the only hopes that I have, and I talk to my wife about this actually a lot, and I don't know if she particularly cares. I'm just like rambling to her most days, as you can imagine. But, I was telling her, like, one thing I'm really excited about to see is how sort of inequality shifts in sports and gets to be hopefully more equality based, as you're seeing young black athletes are now starting to make generational wealth for themselves, right? We're seeing massive contracts signed, and we're seeing more black athletes deciding to invest their money, whether it's jointly together. Like Kevin Durant, for example, has like the boardroom and has all these different things. LeBron James has production companies and all these different avenues, and you're seeing more and more players that make these connections. Eventually, we're going to start seeing former NBA, former NFL, former MLB, even though MLB has its own race problem. You're going to start seeing younger black athletes or minorities in general start to have the ability to purchase teams or become a majority owner in a team and actually have like real power and real ownership and real decision making there. My hope is that before that point, we get to a spot where these things are pressured more to the leagues, where they're able to drive more equality because they have a major stake at the table. Because right now, like the NFL, the NBA does care more about players than you could maybe argue most leagues, but like the NFL doesn't care about their players, right? It's all a public, facing thing they're looking for ultimately, and they are an ownership based league. Roger Goodell works for the owners. Like he is there to, like every commissioner, like make sure they're happy. And the owners don't really care about their players in the NFL. We can look at guaranteed money and all the different things like that are stacked against the players to make them a viable player at the table, no pun intended. I hope when we start seeing generational wealth move back into leagues or move back into owners, that we then don't have to worry about this. I hope 25, 30 years from now, my kids don't have to worry about, I can't watch this sport because of how terrible their player treatment is, because they're doing dumb things like race norming and denying black players the ability to get funds to help them care for themselves after spending years of their life to be a gladiator, to use your analogy, in front of people and then have trauma for the rest of their lives. It's just unreal.
And I'll get off my soapbox and we'll move on to something after this. If this makes you angry, if this conversation makes you angry, either for or against or whatever, if you're white, black, Asian, whatever you are, and this conversation makes you angry for any reason, good. It should make you angry. You should feel something about this, because this is not something that we can continue to sweep under a rug. These are real people that are putting themselves on the line. I don't want to hear, oh, they make millions of dollars to play the game they do. They don't make millions of dollars to end up in crippled chairs with no help whatsoever, with no help post-career whatsoever. A lot of players are getting no help because either they were misdiagnosed or they were diagnosed and black. They were diagnosed correctly, but they were black. That's what this is. Imagine going to your doctor, being diagnosed for a sickness and being told, well, if you're white, you'll get the treatment. But if you're black, you don't really qualify. Sorry, because, you're dumb anyway. That's as this is saying. Unconscionable is the word to describe it, and it needs to be better. Period.
Amen.
We're going to end it up on let's go a little lighter note. Let's go a little lighter note here. Tyrone Woodley. I won't say the other guy's name yet, because I know exactly what's going to happen here, because you know where I'm going to go with this. Tyrone Woodley has accepted a fight with renowned boxing legend.
No, Mills.
Jake Paul. Former YouTuber, well, no, current YouTuber, but top of the game, Jake Paul.
I quit the podcast.
Widely known as must see in the boxing world.
I quit.
Has taken down every fighter put in front of him with a technical prowess and a power from his right hand not seen since the days of lore or yore or both. Because for years they will write about the legend that is Jake Paul. He is. Listen, has he not won every fight he's been in?
They aren't real fights. Ben Askren looked like the Pillsbury Doughboy. No disrespect, not trying to body shame. I'm just giving an analogy for how out of shape he was compared to what he normally was. Ben Askren looked like he had not seen exercise in a very long time. And then the man just did a little dead fish flop on the mat.
Ben Askren looked like what you would look like if we got in a fight. Two sounds. Chin,
the reach.
Floor. The reach? It's unfortunate that's all you've got. Get a little head bob,
I've been working
underscore uppercut. That's all I got to get. I got the weave. I got the bop and weave.
You're lucky there's the pandemic. You know what'll be great, Mills? You know, you're probably right. With your beard, I probably couldn't really hit you, but when you lose your beard, I'll clean shot
the
right
glass chin shows.
Yeah.
I've been taking classes. Jake Paul does like what is it called? Taibo?
I'm so close to ending this podcast. I hate this.
So anyway, Tyrone Woodley has accepted a fight against Jake Paul. It's going to happen in August. I think August 28th is the date right now. Isn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they said August 28th was going to be the date.
I don't know when this
Tyrone Woodley Tyrone Woodley has lost his last 5 fights. They haven't been particularly close. He's 40 years old. The UFC will no longer touch him because, well, he's going to fight Jake Paul. But to his credit, much like Ben Askren, this is going to be Tyrone Woodley's biggest payday ever, and he made sure everyone knew it, including Dana White. I'm telling you, is Jake? I'm gonna ask you a question, and I want you to take it seriously.
I can't.
Is Jake Paul, and the Paul brothers at this point, because Logan's facing off against Floyd Mayweather, is Jake Paul bringing eyes back to the fight game that have been to the boxing game that have been missing for years?
Okay, let's get something straight. Technically, eyes are being brought, but
I'm sorry. So you're saying that yes, Jake Paul is bringing eyes back to boxing,
but the Paul brothers are doing it through drama, right? Also, I have a tangent. I'm not going to go on it. The Paul brothers, I'm looking forward to the day. Logan isn't as frustrating of a human being to listen to. You know, yeah. Logan at least like has moments where you're like, oh, there's something here. There's a human being here. Jake Paul is just a walking meme. He's doing everything for social media. He just says he's from the streets of Cleveland. He's from the richest and wealthiest neighborhood in the state of Ohio. Look up Westlake, Ohio, which is where he actually was at. It is one of the, it's insane. It's literally insane. Maybe that's not the area. I can't even remember. Anyways, I don't care about Jake Paul. Tyrone Woodley, I need him to do me one favor. Just put Jake Paul to sleep.
What is that? Put him to sleep?
Put him to sleep.
So what happens when Woodley goes down in the first 30 seconds?
I think at that point we have to then call a spade a spade. We have to be like, look, this is obviously a dive. We saw it with Askren. If we see it with Tyrone Woodley, I think we have to do the exact same thing and be like, no. We got to cause an uproar. I'll make a video calling it out at that point. We'll start a revolution. We'll get a hashtag, cancel Jake Paul. I'm here for it.
Let me be a little more serious on my side of this. Jake Paul is bringing eyes, agreed, over drama. Jake Paul is like a NASCAR race. The people that are watching it that don't normally watch it are looking for a car wreck.
Car crash. Yeah, true.
They're waiting for Jake Paul to get knocked out. People aren't going to watch the Logan Paul fight and go, I hope Floyd knocks him out. People are watching that going, I think Floyd's going to win, but at least they're taking it somewhat seriously. Whereas Jake Paul is, like you said, stealing people's hats. Like, what is going on? Askren took a dive. No one's going to tell me different. Askren hit the mat faster than, like I said, you would in a fight with us, which is crazy, by the way. If Woodley has a legitimate shot here, and by legitimate, I mean, he's a striker. He was known as a striker in the UFC. He's got a decent ground game, but it's a boxing match, obviously. Problem is that Woodley hasn't looked like Woodley in years. Jake Paul's picking the bones off another older UFC vet. What's going to happen here is Jake Paul is going like boss battle. He's starting off at the first level. He's leveling up the boss every time.
Yeah.
Little by little until somebody knocks him out. And that will be the payoff. And believe me, Jake Paul knows that. Jake Paul 100% knows he's going to get knocked out at some point. He's going to bite off more than he can chew. And that will be the payoff. Jake Paul's playing a villain. I hate to say this. He's kind of a genius.
He's going to fight his brother. That'll be his boss battle.
Can you imagine
That's going to be
Logan
the dumb
knocking
boss
him
battle.
out? Whatever it is, whatever is work going on with his marketing, it is kind of genius. Like he's right. Tyron Woodley made a point of saying this. Ben Askren said this. It's their best payday they've ever had. If you're Tyron Woodley, you have to take that. Like you have to take that. You're not sullying. Like, what is Tyron Woodley going to sully? He's already sullied his career in the last 5 years. So I would say I'm going to watch it. I'm 100% going to watch it. I watched Jake Paul knock Ben Askren out. I'm going to watch Logan Paul fight Floyd Mayweather. I want to see the car crash. But I do, to be fair, I'm watching it because I want to see Tyron Woodley knock Jake Paul's jaw into the third row. That's what I want to see. Period. All jokes aside, I want to see that brat get put on the ground. That's all I want to see. And I want to see Tyron Woodley literally like teabag him like in the middle of the match. I want to see him legit I want to see Jake Paul embarrassed once he gets knocked out. I want to see Tyron Woodley like squatting, like Halo squatting over him when it's done. So
I'm just worried because Woodley is a massive human being for his size. He's 5'9", and I think they're fighting at 190. Remember correctly?
I think you're right.
Okay.
He was welterweight. He was welterweight in UFC.
He was
Obviously,
170.
I think UFC weight classes are a little different than boxing weight classes, though, and I think Woodley's heavier now. Woodley's definitely heavier now. You can look at Woodley and see he's heavier. Yeah. So let's call it 190. Let's call it 190.
He's gonna be fighting at 190. Jake Paul is 6'1", so he carries 190 a little bit better. Not much, but I just need. Look, I'm not going to watch the fight because I'm not trying to perpetuate stupidity. But if I could just see a social media clip shortly after the fight that I'm not paying for of Tyron Woodley hitting Jake Paul with the cleanest uppercut we have seen since Fight Night Round 3 in slow motion, spit flying all over the place, and just a freeze frame meme that we can use forever, I will be happy, and 2021 will have been a great year. That's all I want.
ESBC, add the Paul brothers. I'm telling you, it's money ready to go, boys.
On that note, we're gonna be ending the podcast there. Mills, great episode, except for
forever.
Where you shoehorned the Paul brothers in, which I feel like is every episode. Keep playing UFC 4. Your only way to beat me up ever.
I mean, can I get a creative fighter review in the game? I'll gladly beat your tail constantly on that.
They were trying to get me in, but I have a 12 pack. They couldn't get it in. They just physically couldn't figure it out. So,
sorry, what?
I have 12 abs. It's
I'm sure you do.
I do a lot of sit-ups. So
they're just under everything else, unfortunately.
Okay.
Don't forget, guys, June 19th, 1 p.m. Eastern. Set it to your calendars right now. Twitch.tv/ is it gonna be Twitch? I think it is Twitch, right? I don't know yet. We'll have more details on it next week. Yeah, we'll have more details, and we'll tweet it out on the official on our accounts, the official account, Overplayed Pod on Twitter. 1 p.m. we will be doing a live taping of the Overplayed podcast. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of you will be there anyway. So make sure you set it up on your calendar. Set GCX on your calendar anyway. There's so much cool stuff that comes out of GCX. They work with Bungie. They work with everybody. All kinds of cool stuff. Bro, man, Kevin, Tim, all those guys over there. We'll have some cool things coming out of GCX.
Yep. And we might have a special guest still working through that, but we might, and then we'll tease it, and then you'll hear about it, and hopefully you watch it live. But
it's just me with glasses, with like one of those fake glasses, and since I'll have a clean shaven face, I'm gonna have like one of those spy mustaches on. It's just gonna be me sitting next to you.
I cannot wait. That is it for us this week. Thanks for listening. Be safe, be smart. Tell somebody you love them. We'll catch you on the next one.
Ciao.